Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome back. I am one of your co-hosts, Rico Borrego.
I am your other co-host, Tony Borrego.
And this is the podcast known as Relatively Sound, the podcast that is magically delicious. Today, Tony and I, we're here to do a little housekeeping. First, Tony, I'd like to ask you how you're doing today.
I'm doing good, I guess. Sure. What about you?
I'm doing well. Today we're doing a little kind of a little cool down episode. We've both been busy on our own, but we've been doing a good job recently at trying to do an episode a week, editing it, releasing it. Our YouTube viewers might have noticed I'm stepping up our game a little bit with thumbnails, and I've been editing songs into the episode to make it a little bit more engaging for listeners, especially people listening to an episode who might not have heard the music that we're talking about in the episode. So I've been learning some editing skills and whatnot. I mean, I'm doing it all through a MacBook on iVideo, so it's nothing all that complex, but I'm learning. And we're gonna have some changes here in the next couple of months. And Tony and I thought it would be good if we just a little update episode, talk about some of our future plans for the podcast and also off the podcast and just in real life. And so Tony, let's start with you have a trip this weekend. Which is why we're recording today, so we can have this episode out Monday while you're, still coming back from your trip and whatnot. But you got something else coming up the following weekend, if that's correct. Why don't you let our listeners know what you've got going on in a week or so?
Yes. So, Saturday the 8th, I will be up in Tri-Cities, playing main stage for the Tri-Town Get Down Festival, believe up in Richland. We will be playing with, I believe the biggest names there is going to be Kyle, yes, just named Kyle. Hobo Johnson, who I just heard for the first time, bless my ears.
No
And I
comment.
think Paul Russell is supposed to be big too. I'm not sure though.
We forgot to look him up. We'll do it after the podcast.
Yeah, these are all artists I don't listen to. It's not my style of music, but I have the opportunity to play guitar for Anna Thompson and get my gigging muscles strong. So that'll be pretty neat. And I'm not someone that really drives far. Like, I drive Seattle a lot for rehearsals and whatnot, but I've only been to Tri-Cities maybe like 5-6 times in my life. And then as Rico was saying, next week, so the week before the gig, I'm going to be in a couple days going down to. I don't know when this episode gets released, but this week
It'll be after.
It'll be after. Okay. Well, I'll already have visited Oregon, see some family, so that'll be cool. So a lot of traveling for me. And there is one more gig in the future that will be happening in July 20th, another Saturday. We'll be once again with Anna Thompson performing for Capitol Hill Block Party. I don't have as many details on that one, but 2 gigs coming up should be fun and exciting. And then just to crank out, some of the housekeeping going on. I will actually no longer be doing housekeeping. I have officially quit my job as a house cleaner.
I think were you about to say maid for a second?
Well, our company is called Rain City Maids, but I prefer not to call myself a maid. I'm a professional residential cleaner.
They let you keep the outfit though, right?
I will be keeping the pink jacket that I snagged, the hoodie.
And so what are you going to be doing now that you're going to be taking some time off working? Besides the podcast, obviously.
So I was actually inspired to go back to school. Who would have thought? Out of high school, I had done some running start, some classes at Everett Community College. I said, this is not for me. But my friend Greg and my friend Dayton, who's actually going to be playing with me in Tri-Town Get Down, they're finishing up degrees in audio engineering at Shoreline Community College. Greg had brought me into the studio to record me for a project of his. His friend Dayton, that's how I met him. He helped out. And we actually just did another session, I think Sunday. So, I saw the studio. I'm like, this is really cool. They really enjoyed the program. I talked to the advisor about it, and I decided, you know what? I'm fortunate enough to be living with my parents right now. Not a better time to go to school while I'm still young, sort of. So, yeah,
What
I'm
do
gonna be
you mean,
pursuing.
sort of?
I'm, I'm getting older. I'm getting older.
So what are some of your classes you're going to be taking?
So honestly, I'm just following a list of classes, but some of them are going to include class in, Pro Tools, learning how to use it and get a certificate for it. Um, Learning to read sheet music, which I'm excited for that one. There are just going to be some music theory, introduction to keys, so I just believe like basic piano stuff, just because it's kind of a skill you need. I'm sure some stuff about music business and law. So that'll be fun. I can finally partake in those conversations of lawsuits of ripping off songs. I'm gonna feel so educated. So yeah, basically going to school for audio engineering, taking some classes that will be some will be kind of stuff I already know, some will be new. As far as what career path I'm looking for going down that, I'm not quite sure yet, but I know there is a class or two that will go over, job possibilities. Um, if I had to guess, probably something more down producing, because I like writing songs. That's where I get my biggest thrill.
So, but at producing as opposed to a songwriter, right? Because
Well, Ishan has explained to me multiple times, and I always forget what his actual definition of a producer is. But I mean, like what? Because like you say, like Taylor Swift, she's got like five producers on a song, or like Andrew Watt's the producer of the new Pearl Jam album, and he has songwriting credits on everything.
yeah, I mean every producer is different. Like well, kind of how we even talked about in the last episode with Tom Petty and Rick Rubin. Rick Rubin, he might give like his suggestions on maybe like a transition in a song or whatever, but he doesn't play any instruments. So he can't really like say, "Oh, I think you need to play a B flat here instead of a whatever chord," like he probably can only communicate through maybe less musical theory terms. But then yeah, you have someone like Andrew Watt who is definitely more upcoming and upcomer because he's only done so many records.
Which
I mean,
shows.
he's done a good amount, just actually less in the rock realm up until about a year or two ago. And yeah, he plays music. I think he has his own band. So with the new Pearl Jam album, he actually like helped write some of the songs, and he plays guitar. I think on maybe even some of the records and whatnot. So every producer is different. I've seen Jason Isbell work with the one producer he's worked with a ton in the past is Dave Cobb, and in his documentary he released a couple of years ago, um, you can see them writing songs in the studio. And Jason's already kind of written most of the song already, and he brings it to the band and to the producer. And like the producer might give some tips, but he's overall kind of letting Jason dictate how he wants the song to sound.
Right,
So it,
right.
it, it kind of depends. Like, I don't think even like Taylor Swift, I think she comes in with a demo of the song. And then someone like Jack Antonoff, who I don't like, but just because we're using them as an example, um, because he has been in multiple bands and he's definitely a songwriter, he will probably add on to the song, or he'll take it from an acoustic song and make it, more pop centric with, keys and, stuff like that,
Yeah,
other
I
instruments.
should have maybe phrased that a little different and stuff. Yeah, because like for example, Anna Thompson's producer, Fluency, like he'll like write and record like guitar parts, for example, over a pre-existing song, like you had mentioned. So, yeah, and that, or even like, I mean, it'd still be pretty cool to just like actually just be like an engineering assistant on a cool record. Um, but I don't really know. I'm gonna learn more about that. So sorry if I'm, you know, kind of making up bullshit. But
Well, and the cool thing is, we'll probably in the future, once you start these classes in the fall, right?
yeah,
Um, we're probably going to use the podcast as a way to document your journey. You can talk about the things you've been learning in your class, how maybe that's changed your own songwriting or your own production on your own projects. And yeah, it'll just be an interesting, since this podcast is basically all about music, that is one aspect of music. And hell, it might even inspire me to go back to, I mean, I finished some degree of college, but I definitely could go back and get like a bachelor's or something else, since my degree is just kind of general. So, um, but yeah, I don't know what I would want to do going back. I love writing about music, so I think mine would be more like in some type of journalism. Um,
Okay, yeah.
because
Uh,
for people who might not know, I am a moderator of three different music subreddits on Reddit. The REM one, Ben Folds, and the Tragically Hip. And my role as a moderator on those subreddits are basically every week I take a song from each band's and artist discography and I write like a little essay about the song, dissecting the lyrics, talking about the musical aspects, the history, how the song was written. And, was it performed live? Was it a single? Was it a hit? Is it underrated? And it's just supposed to start a discussion in these groups, especially since two of those bands are no longer, um, creating music anymore. REM broke up and Tragically Hip, unfortunately, kind of had to break up. So, and Ben Folds, he might not really do another really album after his last one. So, um, it's kind of a nice time now to kind of go through these bands' discographies and talk about the songs and get very specific because that's what I like to do, and that's kind of what we do on the podcast. Um,
I didn't realize you were also Ben Folds, one of the moderators for that.
yeah, that was more recent. I've only been doing that for a little bit now.
So what do you do? I've always wondered this when you see like, people like do song descriptions, and I'm not really on Reddit. Although I do like that sounds like something I'd be interested in, like following one band that I'm a little more engaged with. But what do you do when you have gone over all of their songs?
I don't know because I haven't gotten there yet. The
Which
hip
one are you
one,
closest to?
the hip one, actually, the one I just wrote for next week because I post them every. I used to be Sunday, but now I post them. No, it used to be Monday, and I post them every Sunday. The hip one, we're about down to only two songs per album. Granted, they have like 13 albums, and then there's also a handful of unreleased tracks, but those I'm going to save because the last couple of years, the Hip have been releasing box sets on anniversaries of all their albums. So some of those unreleased songs will be officially released. So I think I'll save those, but just the studio albums that have already been released, the studio songs, we're down to about two for each album. So we're only down to like, I don't know, less than 30 songs now. And I do one a week. Once we finish them all, that'll probably be it. I mean, I'll still be a moderator, and I'll just be, helping take down spam from the subreddits, or, you know, we try not to police too much on Reddit, but people are posting spam or people are posting comments that have nothing to do with the band. We have to go remove those or whatever. Um, but yeah, I mean, and there's a, most of these bands, there's already a podcast about them where they've gone over each song, but there's some people who don't like podcasts, and there's a lot of people who like just, maybe even older people on Reddit who like typing, who, like to read and write as opposed to listening to a podcast. So I have a lot of people who return weekly to these posts and give their opinions on the songs, and a lot of it is cool because it's just like, what do you think the song's about? And some of these songs have very specific meanings, and then some of them are very more vague and up for interpretation. So when once I finish for all the songs for each three artists, I'm just gonna probably compile all. I'm gonna make a post where it's just like a link to each song's own separate discussion, and then I'll probably just pin it to the top of the subreddit. That way, people come, they can click on it and click on what song, and I every now and then I'll have someone make a comment on a post that I did a year ago because they're just now finding the subreddit or they're just finding out about these songs of the week. So, um, but yeah, that's something that I like doing. If you're a fan of either of those bands, definitely join us on Reddit. It's fun. We have fun discussions. And yeah, even if only like I get a comment or two on some of them, I still like doing them. Enough people will see them and read them and enjoy them. So,
I feel like something like that also really makes you appreciate a song more. I remember
oh yeah,
I had really gotten into a Primus song, My Friend Fats, and it's like a 7 minute song or something like that, and it is a monster of a track. I love it. And so I did try to look up, people's thoughts on it. And someone did make like a post on it on Reddit, and their description of it was like perfect. I'm like, okay, someone feels the same way I do about
yeah.
this song. It does not get enough love, but there are people that can see it. So I do see how that is quite appealing, and I am interested in keeping up with some bands I like, especially trying to think like if someone did that for Incubus, that might be cool because they're a band where their fan base is quite divided on certain things and albums and
Yeah, and that's it
so.
too. It's these songs. Sometimes I'll post one where I think it's a well-loved song, and a lot of people are like, "Ah, this isn't my favorite." Or I'll post a song that I think people are gonna hate, and then they're like, "No, we love the song." So yeah, it's just an issue, and that's how when we talk about a lot of these songs, and you ask, and or you'll either ask me or I'll bring it up. I'll say, "Oh, fans usually hate this song or usually love the song." That's how I know about that a lot of time is through Reddit. It's
Right,
a lot
right.
easier if the song was a single because then you can get people posting reviews on just the song itself on YouTube or
Yeah,
just
I normally
nice.
get mine from like YouTube videos of like going to like live performances or something, and then
Yeah.
people comment they're like, never liked this track or something. You're like, then why are you here watching this?
Yeah, that's true. So, but yeah, so that's what I have been doing on my downtime. Um, and then we did want to bring up that because you're going to be busy a lot this month and a little bit maybe you said the other gig was in July, right?
Yeah, it's a weekend gig. I don't anticipate that one to be as I think the big thing for me right now is going to Oregon this weekend and
Yeah.
then going to Tri-Cities after and having to kind of cram rehearsals. That's probably where I'm gonna be pretty busy.
Yeah. So for these next couple weeks, our options were basically don't record and release any episodes. Or the other option was I just record some on my own, which may end up being the case. But we're trying to make it work where um we're either gonna have a couple of guests on to fill in for Tony. Our friend Chris, who was on last week's episode, he's gonna try to maybe do an episode with me. I'm gonna reach out to our friend Matt, who was on an episode uh earlier this year. And then yeah, I mean, we'll see if I can find anyone. And if I don't if any of our friends don't have any time, I will probably just do some episodes of my own. I was thinking of just doing an episode where I just, go over just random things about music that has been on my mind. I maybe was going to do some online quizzes, and then I was maybe going to do some live performances.
And please remind us of that your title for this possible series.
I was going to call it like Ramblings with Rico or Rico's Rambles or something like that.
Yeah.
So, um, but yeah, it's I didn't want to do episodes without you because like the whole point of this podcast is us both doing episodes together, and that's kind of the appeal. But again, I didn't want to. You already have a lot on your plate right now, and I didn't want this to be just another added thing. And this is that podcast we do for fun. We don't make money from it or anything, at least not yet. So there's no need, for this to be an extra thing you have to deal with. So we could just do no episodes, but I have the time right now. So it's like I might as well either find someone else just to fill in for a couple weeks or just do an episode by myself. So
Yeah. Having Chris and Matt on the podcast has always been a pleasure. So, especially too, I know you with them share, some artists very closely. You guys got each other into different artists,
yeah,
so I'm sure you easily could talk for hours about. Um,
for sure.
I will
Uh,
not forget when we did our first episodes with Chris, which was with the Beach Boys and Hard Promises. I walked away to like take like a coffee break or something, use the bathroom, and I like, came back and I just sat here listening to the two of them just talking about like live petty stuff. And I just sat here for like 10 solid
oh
minutes.
yeah.
There was no gap in their conversation, and I was just enjoying it. I was like, this is so cool.
Yeah. Which actually,
So
that's probably what we would if Chris and I end up doing an episode maybe next week. It might be covering all the Tom Petty Wildflowers bonus releases that we didn't include on last week's episode because we only focused on the album, the main album that came out in '94. But with Wildflowers and all the rest that came out, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 years ago now. There's the whole other disc of songs, there's the demos, the live songs, and then the alternative versions of the songs that we can talk about. So that's something we might talk about. And then, yeah, if I had Matt on, there's a lot of bands that we like: Spoon, Jason Isbell, Ben Harper, Queens of the Stone Age. And we'd probably pick a band that maybe Tony, you aren't as familiar with. That way you're not missing any important conversations, you know? Like we wouldn't do Queens of the Stone Age because you definitely would want to be a part of that conversation.
I'm
Um,
curious what type of Queens of the Stone Age or like what albums Matt prefers of Queens of the Stone Age.
I think it's
So
kind of I think he sides with me. I think I want to think and say that his favorite is Like Clockwork, but I could be wrong.
which I'm totally cool with that answer, by the way. Don't
I
think
don't
I'm
know.
talking
You
shit.
gave me crap the other day for saying that that's their best.
No, I didn't give you crap for that. I was giving you crap for saying that Keep Your Eye Pills is their best opener.
I think it's their most fitting opener. Yeah.
Well, maybe save that for a future episode.
And speaking of future episodes, so besides these next couple of weeks being kind of a mystery right now, I like I said, I cannot promise you what is going to happen in the next few weeks, but maybe starting in July, Tony and we're talking that if you're still out of work, then we might double up on album for albums for a couple months, at least until you start your classes in the fall, because we definitely have a lot of albums we want to give each other. And we have talked about like, it'd be kind of cool if we did 2 albums for each other. Like, so it would be actually 4 albums in 1 month, right? I'd give you 2 and you'd give me 2. Which would probably mean like those months, that's all we're doing is for albums. And it's probably out of all our different series we've done, it's definitely our favorite. It's the one that we do every month. We don't have another series where we do every month.
I feel like
Um,
I get the most out of them. It's always
yeah.
cool to hear different artists. It's cool to talk in detail, and I just feel like by the end of it, like just gain more appreciation for music, and um, yeah, it challenges me to listen critically and to widen my palate.
And for me, it's been hard giving you albums because part of my brain says give you an album I just want your opinion on. So Wildflowers or like a Spoon album, a U2 album. But these are bands that we've already covered. Hip, we've done like 3 albums now, I think. No, 2. Day for
No, we've
Night.
we've done
3. We've done
three,
3.
yeah,
And
fully
I
completely,
still
and
want to
then
give you more. But then other parts of me want to like, okay, let me give you an artist you've not really listened to before, like Ben Harper. Um, I want to give you Warren Zevon, which you've only really dealt with a little bit. Um, or just artists that maybe you've heard an album or 2 from before, but we haven't covered on this podcast before too much, like a Neil Young album maybe you've never heard, or or even just some albums that maybe I don't know as well, but I just like listening to every now and again, like a band like Tally Hall,
who
who
the hell's that?
they only have 2 albums, and they I think they've kind of broken up since their second one was released. And they're kind of in the I would say they're kind of in the wheelhouse of like a Bare Naked Ladies, where they kind of have some like jokey kind of songs. Um, I don't know too much about them, but one of their albums I actually really like, and I actually just bought it on vinyl because it was reissued. And it should be coming in the mail here actually this month, I think. I think it said it was released in May. Yeah, so there's, or like Talking Heads, we haven't really talked about them too much on the podcast, and they're another band I'd like to give you. So doing 2 albums or doing 4 albums in total in 1 month would be great because I can kind of give you one of each. I can give you an album by a band that we've talked a lot about on the podcast, and then I can give you an artist we haven't really talked about before.
Yeah, and it's tough too because like Um, for example, I have been waiting very patiently for another Bruce Springsteen album. And as much as I would like to dive in my own time to, get more of his discography under my belt, I know you were waiting for my,
Yeah.
my response to the album, my feedback. So that makes it kind of tricky. And I'm sure for some artists we'll get to the point where it's kind of like, okay, go loose, you can
Yeah.
discover the rest on your own. Um, but yeah, I'm with you too. There's a lot of artists where um, for example, giving you Tom Waits one, I kind of dropped the ball a little bit. I gave you the album that I got into him with, but I feel like there was other albums I could have given you that would have been better. So for me, I'm like, okay, let me get redemption on that.
Well,
But
same way for me,
there's
like
still several
Spoon.
albums I could give from him.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's something we're gonna consider in the future. Is or maybe just we'll pick a month, even if after you start your classes, we'll maybe just pick a month where we're like, oh, this month we're feeling like doing 4 albums total, It really depends. Tony and I, we usually when we have an idea for the podcast, we'll mention it to each other and we'll jot it down. And if it's one we're really serious about, then we'll actually plan for it. And there's definitely still a lot of ideas we have for the future episodes. We're talking about one doing an episode on what we think makes a great album opener, as well as what makes a great album closer. Literally in the last 20 minutes of us doing this episode, I thought of an idea for when you start your classes in the fall. We should have Tessa on, and we should do an episode about some type of episode about songs that have to do with school. Oh, say something again.
Oh, I had myself muted. Ignore
There you
me.
go.
Ignore me.
I was thinking of us doing an episode about like songs with like that has to do with school because Tessa's a
Okay.
teacher, so she would be the perfect guest for that episode. So with you back in school, I can already think of some great songs right now.
I
So
already know what Steely Dan song I'm talking about.
do I know it?
The one I showed you the other day, off screen, off air.
That had to do with school?
Yeah, it was my old school.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I
so there,
digress.
so that's definitely one an episode we would do in the future. We have a lot of like ones where we're just going to be talking about more vague things like, when should a band retire or should a band continue on after a main member passes away or quits. Um, I would like to do an episode on just like vinyl and like records and like record collecting. So we have a lot of ideas for future episodes, but we love doing the album for album episodes. So it's kind of sometimes a hard balance to like, when should we do more of this? When should we do less of that? So if you're a longtime listener who listens to most of the episodes we release and record, um, let us know your thoughts. If there's a certain like, type of episode you'd want to hear from us, let us know. I know Tony and I enjoyed doing like the connections episode a couple months ago. And I think we're gonna do an episode where we each make each other custom games from the New York Times website. So like Wordle, connections, strands, and have them be music related. I like doing the Sporkle quizzes, and now that we're doing YouTube videos, video format of this podcast, it'll be a lot more beneficial when we do those type of game episodes, so you can see our screen and it's a little bit more interactive. Um, and then looking even further into the future, my downtime, I've been still trying to put together an album's worth of my own solo songs. And I would still love to one day release that and then do an episode about my songs on the podcast, like we did with Tony's album Good Cause. Tony eventually, I'm sure, will be, working again on his second solo album. And then Tony and I have a collaborative album that we've been working on since before I even moved, before the podcast was even thought of. And we have a lot of the tracks. We have like some of the main guitars recorded. I have to do vocals. We have to get some drums on the songs, some harmonies and some, overdubs with guitar parts. So
Yep, definitely have a lot of guitars. I got a track still, but we definitely do have I think about like three of them somewhat actually recorded, and I think they sound pretty banger.
Yeah, I just got to get some vocals, some recorded on it, and then definitely the drums. Those are like the two biggest things for some of these songs. So yeah, so we have a lot of things, in the works, but we just wanted to update everyone who does listen regularly, even if it's not every episode, but people who will listen to us from time to time know what we have going on in the future. Expect to maybe see Tony not on the next couple episodes because he's busy with his gigs.
My
Um,
presence is needed elsewhere.
yeah, and then we might have some more guests in the future episodes. I might do some episodes by myself, but I would expect by July Tony will be back and we'll be kind of back in a more steady format. Definitely expect some more album for albums because like I said, I think we're gonna double down on them for the next couple months. And then yeah, hopefully by the fall, once Tony gets more comfortable with his school schedule, we'll kind of be back in the normal swing of things. I think that kind of wraps up everything. Is there anything else, Tony, that you wanted to update everyone on this episode?
No, not really, honestly. I think that sums it up. Housekeeping successful.
Yeah. So apologize if this wasn't the most thrilling episode, but I think it was an important episode to record and release. So yeah, next week, like I said, the next couple weeks I don't know. Maybe it'll be an episode with me and Chris. Maybe it'll just be me. But definitely tune in to find out. And yeah, you'll be seeing a lot of cool stuff from us in the next couple months. So stay tuned for that. And until then, we hope you take care and you'll be hearing from us soon. Bye bye.